The Harrison family Christmas dinner had always been a performance of success, wealth, and status. This year was no different, except that I was about to become the star of the show, just not in the way my family expected. I adjusted my simple black dress, bought off the rack from Nordstrom, feeling distinctly underdressed among my relatives' designer labels. My sister Victoria's Gucci dress probably cost more than my car, or at least more than what they thought my car cost. Emma. My mother's voice carried across the formal dining room of their Manhattan penthouse. Come help me with these plates, since you're used to serving people in that little office job of yours. I gritted my teeth but moved to help. At 32, I was still treated like the family disappointment, the daughter who'd turned down a position at my father's law firm to work some corporate job that none of them bothered to understand. Where's James? I asked, though I already knew the answer. My older brother was probably making another grand entrance, likely with news of another promotion or bonus. Oh, he's just finishing a call with his managing partners, my mother replied proudly. They're making him senior partner next month. Youngest one in the firm's history. Right on cue, James strode in, his custom-made suit perfectly pressed, his Rolex catching the light from the crystal chandelier. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Year-end bonuses took longer than expected. Our father beamed. That's my boy. Always closing deals. Victoria, my sister, immediately latched onto James's arm. Tell them about the new house in the Hamptons, James. The one next to the Vanderbilts. I busied myself arranging plates, thinking about the email I'd received just hours ago. The merger I'd been orchestrating for months, the one that would reshape the entire tech industry, was nearly complete. But of course none of them knew that. They still thought I was some mid-level corporate drone pushing papers and getting coffee. Emma, my mother's voice snapped me back to reality. At least try to look interested in your brother's success. God knows you could learn something from him. I forced a smile. Congratulations, James. The Hamptons sounds lovely. He smirked, swirling his expensive bourbon. You know, sis, there's still an associate position open at the firm. Dad could put in a word. Better than whatever entry-level job you're still doing. I'm actually quite happy where I am, I replied, thinking of my corner office on the top floor of the Atlas Tech building, where I'd spent the last 5 years building the most innovative technology acquisition firm in the country. Happy? My father scoffed. Emma, you're 32. Victoria's already made partner at her consulting firm. James is about to become senior partner. And you're still, what exactly are you doing again? I work in corporate acquisitions, I said quietly, the same simplified explanation I'd given for years. Oh yes, Victoria laughed, adjusting her diamond bracelet. Still pushing papers for that tech company? What was it called again? Atlas something. Atlas Technologies, I corrected her, thinking of the nameplate on my CO office door that read Emma Stone, Chief Executive Officer. But they only knew me as Emma Harrison, the disappointing daughter who'd never lived up to the family name. The dinner progressed as it always did. James dominated the conversation with stories about his latest legal victories. Victoria chimed in about her consulting projects with Fortune 500 companies. My parents basked in their successful children's glory while sending me pointed looks of disappointment. Did you hear about the Maxwell merger? James asked, helping himself to more wine. Biggest tech acquisition of the year. $2 billion. My firm's handling the legal side. I took a sip of water to hide my smile. The Maxwell merger, my merger. The deal I'd spent months crafting, the one that would consolidate Atlas Technologies' position as the leading innovation hub in North America. The one James's firm was handling without realizing who really pulled the strings. Speaking of work, my mother turned to me with fake concern. Are you at least moving up at all in that company of yours? Any chance of a promotion? Before I could answer, Victoria chimed in. Oh please, Mom. Emma's probably still getting coffee for her boss. Some of us are just meant for simpler things. Actually, I started, but James cut me off. Remember when she turned down Dad's offer at the firm? He laughed. Could have been something by now. Instead, she's what, an executive assistant. Junior acquisition analyst, my father corrected with a sigh. Though God knows why anyone would choose that over a real career in law. I thought about correcting them. About pulling out my phone and showing them the Forbes article from last month. Atlas Technologies' mysterious CEO reshapes tech industry. The article that mentioned the brilliant but reclusive E. Stone without ever showing my picture. I'd worked hard to keep my identity private, using my mother's maiden name professionally to avoid trading on the Harrison family reputation. Well, my mother said with an air of finality, at least you have a job. Though I do wish you'd dress more professionally. That dress looks like it's from a department store. Victoria snickered. Not all of us can afford Gucci, Mom. Some people shop at, what's that store called? Macy's. I glanced down at my simple dress, a custom-made piece from a small Parisian designer that cost more than Victoria's entire wardrobe. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. How's the apartment hunting going? My father asked Victoria. Found anything suitable in Manhattan? Victoria brightened. Actually, I've got my eye on a perfect place. That new luxury building on Park Avenue, the Sovereign. Top floor penthouse. I nearly choked on my water. The Sovereign, the building I'd bought last month as an investment property. Isn't that building completely sold out? James asked. I heard the waiting list is years long. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. I have connections. My firm handles their corporate accounts. I'm sure I can work something out with the owner. Good luck with that, I murmured, thinking of the stack of rejected applications on my desk, including Victoria's. What was that? She snapped. Nothing, I smiled. Just hoping it works out for you. The dinner dragged on, each course accompanied by fresh reminders of my supposed inadequacy. James's stories grew louder with each glass of wine, Victoria's comments sharper, my parents' disappointment heavier. You know, James said, loosening his tie, I heard Atlas Technologies is looking to acquire Maxwell Industries. Biggest deal of the decade if it goes through. My firm's handling it, of course. Of course, my father nodded proudly. Though honestly, James continued, from what I've heard, this mysterious CEO is in over their head. The whole deal might fall apart. Amateur move, really. I checked my watch. The board meeting would be ending soon. The vote that would change everything was happening right now, while my family sat here believing I was nothing more than a junior employee. Still a junior analyst, Victoria mused, shaking her head. Don't you ever wonder where you went wrong, Emma? What you could have been if you'd just listened to Dad. My phone sat silent next to my plate. Any minute now. The board's decision would come through and then. I mean really, James continued, swirling his wine. What do you actually do all day? Get coffee? Make copies? File papers? I opened my mouth to respond, but Victoria wasn't finished. Remember when she said she was going to be successful on her own? Without the family name? How's that working out for you, little sister? The crystal chandelier light caught the edge of my wine glass as I lifted it, thinking about the empire I'd built while they weren't watching. The companies I'd acquired, the billions I'd made, all without anyone knowing my real identity. I do wonder, my mother sighed dramatically, where we went wrong with you, Emma. Your siblings are so successful and you're still just a nobody? I supplied quietly. Well, she had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I wouldn't say nobody. Just underachieving. My phone lay silent on the table. Any minute now. The board meeting would be ending and then everything would change. I just had to wait for the perfect moment. James raised his glass. To success, he declared, and to hoping our little sister might someday find some of her own. Victoria laughed. Still a junior employee at 32. At least you have a job, I suppose. The crystal glasses clinked around the table, a symphony of success I wasn't supposed to be part of. But they had no idea what was coming. No idea at all. The grandfather clock in the corner struck 8, its chimes echoing through the dining room. James was in the middle of another story about his legal brilliance when my phone finally lit up. The caller ID read Sarah Martinez, my chief operating officer. Emma, my mother sighed, what have I told you about phones at the dinner table? I'm sure whatever entry-level crisis you're dealing with can wait. I smiled, letting it ring one more time. Actually, I should take this. It's about the Maxwell merger James was just discussing. James snorted into his wine glass. Please. Like a junior analyst would know anything about that deal. I'm handling it personally. Are you? I kept my voice light as I answered the phone. Sarah, you're on speaker. What's the board's decision? Sarah's crisp, professional voice filled the room. Miss Stone, the board voted unanimously in favor. The $2 billion merger with Maxwell Industries is approved. Congratulations, ma'am. You've just completed the largest tech acquisition of the decade. The silence that followed was absolute. James's wine glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Victoria's fork clattered against her plate. My parents sat frozen, trying to process what they'd just heard. Excellent, I replied calmly. Have legal send over the final contracts. I'll sign them tonight. Of course, Miss Stone. Oh, and the Wall Street Journal is requesting an interview. They're calling it a masterpiece of corporate strategy. Thank you, Sarah. That will be all. I ended the call and turned back to my family. I'm sorry, James. You were saying something about amateur moves? Stone. Victoria whispered, her face draining of color. But that's my professional name, I finished for her. Emma Stone, CEO of Atlas Technologies. Mother's maiden name, actually. Rather fitting, don't you think? James stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. This is impossible. You're a junior analyst. You get coffee and file papers. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you really think I've been doing for the past 5 years? While you were all so busy succeeding, did none of you ever actually check what I was building? My father's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You're the mysterious CEO? The one who's been reshaping the tech industry. The very same. I pulled out my phone and opened the Forbes article, sliding it across the table. Though I prefer innovative to mysterious. Victoria grabbed the phone, her hands shaking. Atlas Technologies, $30 billion in acquisitions, youngest CEO in tech history, revolutionizing corporate strategy. She looked up, her perfect makeup unable to hide her shock. This is all you. Every bit of it. I turned to James. By the way, your firm's handling of the Maxwell merger has been excellent. Though next time, you might want to check who you're calling an amateur. My mother found her voice. But why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. When have any of you ever believed I could succeed without the Harrison name? The sovereign, Victoria whispered suddenly. You're the owner. That's why my application was rejected. I smiled. The penthouse is lovely this time of year. Though I prefer my place in Tribeca. My father stood up slowly, his legal mind finally catching up. Atlas Technologies, you're worth more than the Harrison family fortune 10 times over? I supplied. Yes. Turns out the disappointing daughter did all right for herself. James sank back into his chair, his face ashen. All those meetings, the legal briefs I sent, you've been reading them? Every word. Your work is good, James. Though your tendency to underestimate amateur CEOs might need some attention. Victoria's perfectly manicured hands trembled around her wine glass. The consulting contract my firm's been pitching is under review, I finished. Though after tonight's performance I might need to reconsider. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Emma, darling, we never meant. Yes, you did, I cut her off gently. You meant every word, every dismissive comment, every disappointed sigh. You all believed exactly what you wanted to believe, that I was nothing without the Harrison name. I stood up, smoothing my department store dress. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a $2 billion merger to finalize. James, your firm will receive the contracts tonight. Try to keep your amateur opinions to yourself while reviewing them. Emma, wait, my father called as I reached the door. We were wrong. About everything. Yes, I agreed, you were. And now you know exactly how wrong you were. I turned back one last time. Oh, and Victoria? About the sovereign, I'll have my assistant send over a list of more suitable buildings. One's more appropriate for your budget. The elevator ride down from their penthouse gave me time to savor the moment. As I stepped into my waiting car, a custom Bentley that cost more than James's house, my phone buzzed with messages from my family. Mom, Emma, please come back. We need to talk. James, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Victoria, can we meet tomorrow? Please? Dad, I've never been more wrong in my life. I smiled, remembering all the family dinners I'd endured, all the condescension I'd swallowed, all the times I'd bit my tongue while they belittled my choices. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. Sarah called as we pulled away from the building. Miss Stone, the contracts are ready for your signature. And there's something else. What is it? Harrison Legal just withdrew from the Maxwell merger. James Harrison personally called to recuse himself, citing family conflict. I laughed softly. Find us another firm. Preferably one that doesn't underestimate female CEOs. Already done. Oh, and the Wall Street Journal piece just went live. They're calling you the most influential CEO under 40. I looked back at my parents' building, thinking of their shocked faces, their shattered assumptions, their broken certainty about who I was and what I could achieve. Sarah, I said, send a copy of the article to my family. With my compliments. The next morning my office was flooded with flowers and apology notes. James sent an expensive bottle of whiskey with a card reading, "To the best who I never knew I knew." Victoria's consultation firm sent a desperate revision of their proposal, now offering rates well below market value. My parents left 17 voicemails, each more apologetic than the last. I sat in my corner office, looking out over the city I'd conquered while they weren't watching. On my desk sat the signed Maxwell merger documents, proof that the nobody they'd dismissed had become somebody extraordinary. My assistant buzzed in. "Your family is in the lobby, Miss Stone. All of them. They're asking to see you." I thought about all the times they'd made me wait, all the times they'd dismissed my presence, all the times they'd treated me as less than nothing. "Tell them," I smiled, "that they'll need to make an appointment. The CEO of Atlas Technologies is a very busy woman. After all, success isn't just about making money or closing deals. Sometimes, it's about showing the people who never believed in you exactly what they missed while they were too busy looking down to see you rising up." And as I sat there reading the Wall Street Journal's glowing profile of the brilliant strategist reshaping corporate America, I couldn't help but think that sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right so spectacularly that they have no choice but to admit how wrong they were. The nobody had become somebody. And she did it all without their precious Harrison name. The quarterly family dinner at Harrison and Associates law firm's private dining room carried its usual weight of expectations and disappointment. The mahogany walls, lined with legal awards and family photos, seemed to close in as I adjusted my simple blazer, deliberately chosen to downplay the Patek Philippe concealed beneath my sleeve. Dad sat at the head of the table, his managing partner posture perfect in his $5,000 suit. Mom perched beside him, diamonds glinting as she swirled her Bordeaux. My sister Victoria, the firm's youngest partner, kept checking her phone between bites of Wagyu beef. "Still working that startup?" Dad's question cut through the classical music playing softly in the background. He didn't bother looking up from his plate. "What is it again? Software something?" "Digital security solutions," I replied, taking a measured sip of water. My phone buzzed silently, another acquisition alert. Victoria snorted. "Is that what we're calling it now? Last year it was revolutionary algorithms, wasn't it?" "The algorithms were just the foundation," I said, checking my watch. 20 minutes until the board meeting. "Sweetheart," Mom leaned forward, her concern practiced and perfect. "You're 35. It's time to think about a real career. The firm could always use another associate." I suppressed a smile. The firm wouldn't exist next month if they knew what my startup had planned. "Your sister made partner in 3 years, Dad continued, his voice carrying that familiar mix of pride and pointed comparison. "Meanwhile, you're still playing with computers in that tiny office downtown." If only they knew that tiny office occupied the top 3 floors of the city's most expensive building. Speaking of the firm, Victoria straightened. "We just landed Peters Manufacturing. $4 billion in annual revenue. Biggest client in the firm's history." He smiled at Dad. "I led the pitch myself. That's my girl." Dad beamed, raising his glass. "To the future of Harrison and Associates." My phone buzzed again. Right on schedule. The dining room door opened. Sandra, Dad's secretary for 20 years, rushed in, her face flushed. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, Mr. Harrison, but..." She looked at me, confusion crossing her features. "Ma'am, your board meeting is ready. They're waiting in conference room A." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. Red wine spread like victory across the Persian rug. "Board meeting." Dad's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "What board meeting?" I stood slowly, straightening my blazer. The Peters Manufacturing Emergency Board meeting. We're finalizing the acquisition today. Acquisition. Victoria's voice cracked. What acquisition? Of Harrison and Associates. I finally let myself smile. Among other things. Dad's face went from confusion to disbelief to dawning horror as understanding set in. His eyes dropped to my wrist, where my sleeve had risen just enough to reveal the watch he'd failed to notice earlier. That's a Patek Philippe Grand Complications, he whispered. There are only 5 in the world. Actually, I corrected him. I bought the 5th one last week. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a board meeting to attend. I paused at the door. Oh, and Victoria. Peters Manufacturing isn't your client anymore. They've been mine for the past year. I left them sitting there, the sound of my heels on hardwood punctuating every step toward conference room A, where the future of Harrison and Associates waited to be decided. The silence followed me into the hallway, broken only by the soft whir of my phone as more notifications arrived. Behind me I could hear Mom's shaky voice. Harrison, that watch, it's worth more than our house. I paused, just out of sight, letting their realization build. A lesson my tiny startup had taught me: timing was everything. Impossible, Victoria's voice trembled. She works in some small tech office. I drove past it last month. Did you go up? I called back, unable to resist. Those top 3 floors have a spectacular view of your building. Well, my building now, technically. The scrambling sound of chairs pushing back echoed through the hall. Dad appeared first, his face ashen. What do you mean, your building? I checked my phone deliberately, letting them see the custom-designed interface. Quantum Securities acquired your building last quarter, along with most of your client portfolio. I looked up, meeting his eyes. Those merger documents you've been reviewing for Peters Manufacturing? They're going through my firm. Victoria appeared behind him, her perfect composure cracking. That's not, we would have known. Would you? I raised an eyebrow. The same way you knew about the quantum encryption algorithm I developed in college? The one you called a cute computer project, at Thanksgiving 4 years ago. Mom joined them, her hands clutching her pearls. Darling, what exactly are you saying? Before I could answer, Sandra hurried back, holding a tablet. Ma'am, the board is asking about the Forbes interview tomorrow. And Mr. Peterson from the Bank of America merger would like to confirm your dinner plans. Tell James the usual place, I said, enjoying how Dad's eyes widened at my casual use of the Bank of America CEO's first name. And yes to Forbes, but make sure they understand the acquisition details remain embargoed until midnight. Acquisition? What acquisition? Dad's voice had lost its usual authority. My phone displayed another notification, right on schedule. The office TVs suddenly switched to breaking news, a feature I'd had installed months ago for exactly this moment. Breaking news. Tech giant Quantum Securities set to acquire major law firm network. The headlines scrolled across every screen in the office. Through the glass walls I could see associates and partners gathering, pointing at the TVs in confusion. That startup you've been mocking? I turned to face my family fully. It's now worth $13.8 billion. And yes, Dad, we're acquiring Harrison and Associates, along with your entire legal network. Victoria grabbed the wall for support. The Peters Manufacturing deal was a smokescreen, I finished for her. They're just one small part of today's larger acquisition. You didn't land them, they were instructed to approach you. By me. Dad's legal mind finally caught up. You orchestrated all of this? Every step, I confirmed, checking my watch again. Now I have a board meeting to chair. We'll discuss the firm's future leadership structure tomorrow. I started walking away, then paused. Oh, and Mom? About that real career you mentioned, does running the largest tech legal conglomerate in the country count? The sound of another wine glass shattering behind me was almost too perfect. As I walked toward conference room A, Sandra fell into step beside me, tablet ready. Your sister's case files have been transferred to the secure server, she murmured. And your father's client list has been uploaded for review. I nodded, thinking of the stunned faces I'd left behind. Have legal send up the ownership transfer documents. I think my family's finally ready to discuss their new positions in the company. The board meeting could wait 5 more minutes. Some moments of victory deserved to be savored. Conference Room A had transformed from its usual austere setting into a command center of modern technology. Holographic displays showed real-time market data, while the glass walls had shifted to privacy mode, turning opaque at my entrance. 20 of the most powerful executives in tech and law sat waiting, their faces both physical and virtual on the display screens. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, taking my seat at the head of the table, "Operation Legacy is now in its final phase." My phone buzzed, a message from Sandra. "Your family is trying to access your company records. Facial recognition shows them at the executive floor reception." "Perfect. Right on schedule." James Peterson, CEO of Bank of America, spoke from the main screen. "The banking consortium is ready. $7.2 billion in acquisition funds are cleared for transfer." I pulled up a holographic display of Harrison and Associates' complete portfolio. As expected, they never noticed their top 50 clients were gradually transferring to shell companies under our control. Victoria's successful pitch to Peters Manufacturing was orchestrated down to the last detail. The door burst open. Dad stood there, clutching a stack of papers, his face red. Behind him, Mom and Victoria stared at the assembled power players with dawning recognition. "You can't do this," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The board of directors sold their shares 6 months ago." I completed his sentence. "To various investment firms, all owned by Quantum Securities." I gestured to the papers in his hand. "I assume those are the ownership transfer documents you just discovered?" Victoria pushed forward. "The client confidentiality agreements were updated last quarter," I cut in, "when your IT department installed our new security software, which gave us complete access to every case file, every client contract, every billing record." I smiled. "You really should read those technical documents more carefully, sis." The holographic display shifted, showing a complex web of companies and acquisitions. At the center, my photo. For those just joining us, I addressed the room while watching my family's faces. Harrison and Associates was just the first step. By midnight, Quantum Securities will have controlling interest in 15 of the top law firms in the country. The legal tech merger of the decade. Mom sank into a chair, her social climbing mind finally calculating my true net worth. "All those charity galas you skipped." "I was busy buying the venues," I confirmed. "Along with the banks that finance them, the security firms that protect them, and the tech that runs them. The downtown office," Victoria whispered, "is the smallest of our 15 global headquarters." I nodded. Though I kept that one deliberately modest. Had to maintain the struggling startup appearance for family dinners after all. Dad's legal mind was racing. I could see him processing each revelation, understanding how completely he'd been outmaneuvered by the daughter he'd underestimated. The holographic display updated with real-time stock prices. Quantum Securities' value jumped another $1 billion as news of the acquisition spread. "Mr. Harrison," James Peterson's voice carried from the screen, "your daughter's quantum encryption algorithm revolutionized banking security. That cute computer project you dismissed? It's now the backbone of global financial cybersecurity." Victoria's phone chimed, probably her broker warning her about her investment portfolio. She'd been shorting tech stocks, specifically targeting companies she thought competed with my failing startup. Those companies were all my subsidiaries. "The board meeting will commence in 5 minutes, I announced. "Dad, you're welcome to stay. After all, you'll want to hear our plans for restructuring the firm's leadership." "Restructuring?" His voice cracked. "Of course. Harrison and Associates needs a new direction." I pulled up the organizational chart. Though we might keep the name. For sentimental reasons. The next morning, sunrise painted the city skyline in shades of victory. From my penthouse office, the real one, not the modest downtown space, I watched digital headlines scroll across neighboring buildings. Quantum Securities completes historic $13.8 billion legal tech merger. My phone lit up with a message from Sandra. "Your father is here." "Send him up," I replied, not turning from the window. The elevator's soft chime announced his arrival moments later. He stood in the doorway, looking smaller than yesterday in his expensive suit. The morning papers were clutched in his hand, our story splashed across every business section. The Times called it the most brilliantly executed corporate takeover in modern history, I said, finally turning to face him. Though I prefer the Wall Street Journal's take, tech prodigy transforms family law firm into global empire. Why? His voice was hoarse. Why all the deception? The secret meetings, the hidden companies. Deception. I gestured for him to sit. I told you about my algorithm at every family dinner for 4 years. Victoria called it adorable. Mom suggested I take typing classes instead. I paused, letting the memory surface. You said I was wasting my degree on computer games. He sank into the chair, looking around my real office, all chrome and glass with multiple screens showing global operations. We didn't understand. No, you chose not to understand. There's a difference. I pulled up the new company structure on the main display. Harrison Global Technologies. The merger of law and technology that you could have been part of from the beginning. And now. I smiled. Now you have choices. Option 1. Take the generous retirement package, keep your house and reputation, make polite appearances at company events. Option 2. Stay on as a senior advisor, learn how modern law really works, contribute your experience to something bigger than a family firm. His eyes fixed on the organizational chart. And Victoria? Already accepted the position of Chief Legal Innovation Officer this morning. Turns out she's quite adaptable when the power dynamics shift. I checked my phone. Mom's planning a gala to celebrate the family's success. Apparently, my achievements are worth bragging about now. The city stretched below us, buildings I now owned glinting in the morning light. Dad's voice was quiet. When did you become this? I always was this, Dad. You just never saw me. I handed him a tablet. Your choice. Retirement or revolution. Either way, the papers need your signature by noon. He stared at the tablet, decades of authority crumbling. The quantum encryption. It really changed banking? It changed everything. Every major financial institution runs on my security protocols now. That tiny office you mocked? It was a front for 15 quantum computing labs. I leaned back. While you were measuring success in billable hours, I was rewriting the rules of digital law. His fingers hovered over the tablet. And Harrison and Associates? Will become the legal arm of something much bigger. Every law firm we acquired brings something unique. Together. I gestured to the screens showing global operations. Together we're building the future of legal technology. He signed, his hand shaking slightly. Your mother wants to know if you'll come to Sunday dinner. I'll send my jet, I replied, watching his eyes widen at the casual mention of private aircraft. The family estate's helipad should be finished by then. Family estate? The one I bought last month. Next door to your country club. I smiled. Consider it a peace offering. After all, family dinner needs a suitable venue now that we're a global corporation. As he left, shoulders slightly straighter with his new advisory role, I turned back to the window. Below, workers were changing the building's signage to our new logo. My phone buzzed with messages from international partners, acquisition targets, and yes, Mom's gala planning committee. I thought of next Sunday's dinner, the first where they'd see me as I truly was. No more hidden achievements, no more modest pretense. Just the satisfaction of success served with a side of delayed recognition. Sandra's voice came through the intercom. The global board is ready for your presentation, ma'am. Tell them I'll be right there. I straightened my jacket, checking my reflection in the window. Oh, and Sandra, reserve the Penthouse restaurant for Sunday. The whole family's coming to dinner. This time I'd be the one sitting at the head of the table. The champagne flowed freely at the Madison Country Club, where my father's retirement party was in full swing. After 35 years at First National Bank, he was finally stepping down as executive vice president, and everyone who mattered in banking was there to celebrate. The grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers, reflecting off the designer suits and diamond jewelry of Chicago's banking elite. Everyone except me, apparently. I stood in the corner, nursing my sparkling water, watching my brother James work the room in his perfectly tailored suit. He'd followed Dad's footsteps, climbing the corporate ladder at the same bank, while I'd chosen to pursue my own path in financial technology. The contrast between us couldn't have been more stark, him in his $5,000 Tom Ford suit, me in my simple black dress from a boutique that would make my mother cringe. Charlotte. Mom's voice carried that familiar mix of joy and disappointment as she approached, air kissing my cheeks. You finally made it. Though couldn't you have worn something more appropriate? She glanced disapprovingly at my outfit, probably calculating its cost against James's designer wear. Her own Chanel suit probably cost more than what they thought I made in a month. I came straight from work, I replied, though I didn't mention that work meant running a company that was about to reshape the entire banking industry. They still thought I was coding in some tiny startup office, struggling to make ends meet. In their minds, I was the cautionary tale, the daughter who'd thrown away a promising career in traditional banking to chase some Silicon Valley dream. Speaking of work, James sauntered over, champagne glass in hand, his Rolex catching the light. Still running that failing startup? What is it again, some kind of payment app? His smirk was perfectly practiced, the same one he'd worn when he made junior partner while I was playing with computers in my small office. The irony made me smile. If only he knew that his precious bank's payment system ran on my company's infrastructure. That every transaction he bragged about processing went through servers I'd designed. Something like that, I replied, checking my phone. 20 minutes until the announcement that would change everything. You know, James continued, enjoying his favorite sport of needling his little sister. Dad's retirement package includes a significant stock option grant. The bank's share price hit a record high last week. Guess that's what happens when you work for a real financial institution instead of chasing pipe dreams. I bit back a response. The stock price was about to become very interesting, but not in the way James expected. My phone buzzed, a message from my CFO. Everything's in place. Board approval confirmed. Ready when you are. Charlotte, honey, Dad joined our little group, his face flushed with celebration and probably a few too many glasses of champagne. You know, you could still come work for us. James could use a good technical person in his department. It's never too late to get back on the right path. The right path. That's what they'd called it when I'd graduated from MIT with honors in computer science, and they'd tried to steer me toward a junior analyst position at the bank. The safe choice. The family choice. Instead, I'd taken my trust fund, the smallest of the 3 siblings of course, and poured it into developing a revolutionary payment processing system. Actually, Dad, I started to say, but was interrupted by a sudden chorus of notification sounds throughout the ballroom. Phones started buzzing simultaneously, creating a symphony of confusion. The familiar chime of news alerts filled the air, followed by confused murmurs. That's odd, James frowned, pulling out his phone. The banking app isn't working. His fingers frantically tapped the screen. System must be down. More voices joined the chorus of confusion. Line's down too. Can't access my account. What's happening? The party's comfortable atmosphere of self-congratulation began to crack. I watched as my father's retirement party transformed into an impromptu crisis meeting. Banking executives huddled in corners, furiously typing on their phones. The champagne glasses stopped clinking as worry lines appeared on perfectly Botoxed foreheads. Must be a system-wide outage, James announced importantly, loosening his tie. I should call the IT department. This is exactly why we need to upgrade our legacy systems. He trailed off as he realized his phone's signal had disappeared. Oh, it's not an outage, I said calmly, taking a sip of my water. The systems are being temporarily suspended for the ownership transition. Standard protocol during a major acquisition. Ownership transition? Dad's head snapped up. What are you talking about? First National isn't being acquired. We would know if. Right on cue, the large screens around the ballroom meant to display a tribute to Dad's career flickered to life with breaking news. Breaking. First National Bank acquired by Quantum Pay in historic $62 billion deal. The silence that fell over the ballroom was deafening. I could practically hear the gears turning in everyone's heads as they processed the news. James's face had gone from smug to sheet white, his perfectly manicured hand gripping his useless phone. Quantum Pay. Dad whispered, his retirement speech forgotten. That's impossible. They're just a startup. They couldn't possibly. His voice trailed off as he stared at the screens, where financial analysts were already calling it the tech acquisition of the decade. Mom's social smile had frozen on her face. Charlotte, dear, isn't that the company you were working with? Perhaps you know something about this. Before I could answer, Mr. Harrison, the bank CEO, burst through the crowd. James, what the hell is going on? The board never approved this. His face was red, expensive silk pocket square askew. I don't know, sir, James stammered, looking nothing like the confident executive director he'd been moments ago. This must be some kind of mistake. Our stock was just rated as a strong buy yesterday. I cleared my throat. Actually, the board approved it 20 minutes ago. Unanimous vote. The papers are already signed. Every head in our vicinity turned toward me. The weight of their stares would have crushed me 3 years ago, back when I was still trying to prove myself at family dinners. How would you know that? James snapped, but his voice wavered. I pulled out my own phone, the only one in the room still working, and opened an email. As I was on the call, while my CFO was. I was a bit busy getting ready for Dad's party. Dad's glass slipped from his fingers, hitting the marble floor with a crash that echoed through the now silent ballroom. Charlotte, what are you saying? I'm saying, I replied, straightening my simple black dress, the same one I'd worn to sign the preliminary acquisition papers last week, that Quantum Pay isn't just a startup anymore. We've been preparing for this for months. Your board members were quite impressed with our technology integration proposal. James laughed, but it sounded hollow. You expect us to believe that your little payment app. That little payment app processed over $2 trillion in transactions last year, I cut in. Which you'd know if you'd actually read any of the reports I sent to the bank's technology committee. The same committee that kept insisting your legacy systems were good enough. The screen switched to showing Quantum Pay's corporate profile. There was my headshot listed as founder and CEO. The champagne glasses that had been hovering in shocked hands started dropping one by one. But the money, Mom stuttered. How did you? Remember that worthless patent Dad said I was wasting time on in college? The one for blockchain-based payment processing? Google tried to buy it for $50 million. I smiled at their stunned faces. I turned them down. Built it myself instead. Mr. Harrison pushed forward again, his face now an alarming shade of purple. This is outrageous. I'll fight this in court. You can't just. Actually, we can. And we did. I pulled up another email. Your signature is right here along with the entire board's. The integration begins Monday. The room erupted in chaos. Banking executives who'd been ignoring me all evening suddenly couldn't take their eyes off me. My phone buzzed again, this time with breaking news alerts about First National stock price soaring on the acquisition announcement. Why? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time that evening. Would you have believed me? When I tried to tell you about the security flaws in the bank system last year, James said I was just jealous of his success. James flinched. Charlotte, Oh, don't worry, brother dear, I said, my voice sweet. You'll keep your job. Though you might want to update your resume to include experience with modern payment systems. You're going to need it. The next hour at the Madison Country Club was a blur of activity. The retirement party had transformed into an impromptu shareholders meeting, with board members huddled in corners making frantic phone calls to their brokers. The lavish dinner buffet went untouched, the carefully planned speeches forgotten. I found myself in the center of a storm I'd spent 3 years creating. Senior executives who'd previously ignored me at bank functions were now hovering nearby, their business cards appearing mysteriously on my table. Even the wait staff seemed to sense the shift in power, offering me fresh drinks before anyone else. Miss Charlotte. A nervous-looking junior executive approached. I'm from the technology integration team. I just wanted to say your blockchain implementation is brilliant. I've been following your patents for years. Thank you, I smiled, recognizing him as one of the few who'd supported my security proposals last year. Stop by my office next week. We'll need good people who understand both sides of the merger. His face lit up, but before he could respond, James shouldered his way through the crowd. His perfect hair was slightly disheveled now, his confident swagger replaced by something closer to panic. We need to talk, he hissed, grabbing my elbow. Now. I allowed him to lead me to a quiet corner of the ballroom, noting how the crowd parted before us like water. Amazing how quickly things change when the power dynamics shift. What's your game here? James demanded, his voice low and intense. Is this some kind of revenge? Because if you think you can just walk in and dismantle everything Dad built. You mean everything you expected to inherit? I countered, keeping my voice level. The bank isn't being dismantled, James. It's being modernized. Something I tried to tell you was necessary 2 years ago. His face flushed. That was different. You were just a consultant then. No, I was the CEO of a company trying to prevent a security disaster. But you and the board were too busy celebrating record profits to listen. I pulled out my phone, showing him the security audit from last year. Remember this? The one you dismissed as fear-mongering? James's eyes scanned the document, his face growing paler. Those vulnerabilities, they're still there? Most of them. Though we've already patched the critical ones during the preliminary integration. You're welcome, by the way. That ransomware attack last month? It would have succeeded if we hadn't quietly upgraded your firewall protocols. He slumped against the wall, his perfect posture finally breaking. Dad's going to kill me. I told him those systems were secure. Dad's not going to kill anyone, I sighed. Though he might want to rethink his retirement timing. Speaking of Dad, I spotted him across the room, sitting alone at what was supposed to be the head table. Mom was nowhere to be seen, probably hiding in the powder room processing the shock. The sight of him there, looking suddenly old and lost, made my chest tight. Look, I told James, softening my tone slightly. This isn't about revenge. The bank needs this merger to survive the next decade. You know that even if you won't admit it. And I suppose you'll want me gone? His voice was bitter, but I could hear the fear underneath. Actually, I want you exactly where you are. That got his attention. You know the traditional banking side better than anyone. We need that expertise during the transition. Though you might want to take some coding classes. Before he could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught our attention. Mom had emerged from hiding, and she wasn't alone. She was practically dragging Mr. Phillips, my old programming teacher from high school, into the ballroom. Tell them, she was saying, her voice carrying across the room. Tell them what you told me about Charlotte's project. Mr. Phillips, looking uncomfortable in his old suit, cleared his throat. I was just telling your mother about the coding competition Charlotte won in senior year. The one that got her the MIT scholarship. The one you said was a waste of time, I reminded Mom gently. Because it wasn't a proper extracurricular for college applications. Mom's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. I didn't understand. I still don't understand all this technology. But Mr. Phillips says your system, it's revolutionizing how money moves. Something like that, I said, watching as Dad slowly made his way over to our growing family cluster. Charlotte, he said, his voice rough. The board chairman just called me. Said they've been secretly courting Quantum Pay for months. Said you're the reason the bank stock hasn't crashed from all those tech company threats. I nodded. The acquisition talks started after we saved 3 regional banks from collapse. They were all using our emergency protocols by then, but quietly. No one wanted to admit they needed help from a startup. Dad ran a hand through his silver hair. All those times you tried to meet with me about system upgrades were attempts to save you from exactly what was happening in the industry, I finished. But you were all so convinced that traditional banking was untouchable. And now you own the bank, James said flatly. No, I corrected him. Now we've merged with the bank. There's a difference. One that will matter a lot to the thousands of employees wondering about their jobs right now. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another news alert. The screens around the ballroom updated with the latest headlines. Quantum Pay First National Merger Promises No Layoffs. Focus on Technology Integration. The tension in the room shifted slightly. I could see shoulders relaxing, worried whispers turning to tentative speculation about opportunities. There's something else you should know, I said, looking at my family. Dad's retirement party? Still happening. Just with a slight modification. I nodded to the event coordinator who had been waiting for my signal. The screens changed again, now showing a split image. Dad's official retirement photo alongside the announcement of his new position as senior advisory board member for the merged entity. If you want it, I added quickly, seeing his stunned expression. The board thinks having you involved in the transition would help maintain customer confidence. And I could use your experience. For a long moment, Dad just stared at the screens. Then slowly a smile began to spread across his face. Advisory board, huh? Does this mean I still get to keep my corner office? Actually, I grinned, we're moving to a new building. Corner offices for everyone. With better coffee machines. The tension broke. James actually laughed. Mom dabbed at her eyes with an expensive handkerchief and Dad pulled me into a tight hug. I'm sorry, he whispered, for not believing in you. It's okay, I whispered back. You can make up for it by helping me explain blockchain to the shareholders. As if to punctuate the moment, all the phones in the room suddenly chimed in unison. The banking apps were back online, now sporting a new interface that merged First National's classic logo with QuantumPay's modern design. The future of banking had arrived. And this time, everyone was paying attention. Now, I said, raising my voice to address the room, I believe we were in the middle of celebrating something. I gestured to the waiters who began circulating with fresh champagne. To Dad's retirement and new beginnings. The party resumed but with a distinctly different energy. Instead of mourning the end of an era, we were celebrating the start of something new. Something that bridged the gap between tradition and innovation, between old money and new technology. As I watched Dad being congratulated by a mix of veteran bankers and tech entrepreneurs, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's showing them a better way forward. Even if it takes crashing a retirement party to do it. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom sparkled with crystal and pretense. Wedding guests in designer wear floated between champagne towers while I stood at the kitchen entrance, staring at my place card. Table K1, I read aloud. K for kitchen. My new stepmother, Diane, glided over in her fourth wedding dress of the day. Oh good, you found your seat. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. We had to make some arrangements. Through the kitchen's swinging doors, I could see the catering staff setting up my solo table next to the industrial dishwasher. The main ballroom held 20 pristine tables, half of them empty. Of course, I said quietly, checking my phone. 3 missed calls from my executive board. It's where the help belongs, Diane's daughter Madison smirked, adjusting her maid of honor dress. We couldn't have a waitress at the family table. They conveniently forgot that I'd left waitressing 8 years ago. That my tech company now powered half the country's emergency response systems. That my tips, these days, came in billions. The family table looks lovely, I noted, watching my father laugh with Diane's country club friends. He hadn't spoken to me since I'd refused to sell my company to his business partner. It's for immediate family only, Diane said firmly. You understand. My phone buzzed again. The acquisition meeting couldn't wait. Better get to your seat. Madison gestured to the kitchen. The staff needs their table for breaks. I checked my watch. A vintage Patek Philippe worth more than Diane's wedding. Actually, I have a prior engagement. Picking up an extra shift? Madison laughed. The hotel manager rushed over, face flushed. Miss Chin, there's a situation outside. The distinct whump-whump of helicopter blades cut through the wedding march. That would be my ride, I said as guests rushed to the windows. The sleek black helicopter was settling onto the Ritz-Carlton's helipad, my company logo gleaming on its side. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, wedding guests pressed their faces against the glass, champagne forgotten. What is the meaning of this? Diane hissed, her perfect makeup cracking with fury. You're ruining my wedding photos. The hotel manager wrung his hands. Miss Chin, your pilot radioed ahead. He says the emergency board meeting can't be delayed. I finished, gathering my Hermes clutch. A 9-figure acquisition waits for no one. Madison's smirk faltered as she recognized the company logo. Her fiancé had been begging for a job there for months. You can't just leave. Diane grabbed my arm, her diamond bracelet catching the light. What will people think? They'll think, I gently removed her hand, that the CEO of Chintech Emergency Systems had better things to do than sit by a dishwasher. My father finally looked up from his best man's table, his face paling as he recognized the helicopter. The same model he'd called a wasteful expense when I'd tried to explain my company's growth. The pilot's voice crackled through the manager's radio. Miss Chin, the board is assembled. Tokyo Stock Exchange opens in 30 minutes. Tell them I'm on my way, I replied, heading for the helipad access. And Madison? She straightened, suddenly eager. Yes. About your fiancé's job application. I paused at the door. The kitchen is hiring, The cool evening air whipped my dress as I crossed the helipad. Behind me, the wedding reception had devolved into chaos, with guests abandoning their assigned seats to crowd the windows. "Your father is requesting an immediate meeting," my assistant's voice came through my earpiece. "He's mentioned something about his business partner's offer." "The same offer I rejected last month?" I smiled, ducking under the helicopter blades. "The insulting one that valued my company at 1/10 of its worth?" Through the windows, I could see Dad frantically working his phone while Diane's perfectly orchestrated reception crumbled around her. The string quartet had stopped playing, too busy watching my helicopter to maintain their balk. "Miss Chin," the pilot called over the engine noise, "Tokyo is waiting. The acquisition will triple our Asian market share." Madison burst through the helipad door, her maid of honor dress billowing. "Wait. About Thomas's application. Your fiancé who called my company glorified dispatch software?" I settled into the leather seat. "The kitchen pays $15 an hour." My father appeared behind her, his face a storm of realization. The last time he'd seen me, he'd laughed at my revenue projections. Now my emergency response systems protected 40 million people. "Sarah," he shouted over the rotors, "Gerald's offer still stands." Gerald's offer, I adjusted my headset, wouldn't cover the cost of this helicopter. Speaking of which, the pilot's voice crackled through the wedding venue sound system. I'd forgotten he was still patched in. Chintech Systems currently valued at $8 billion. Tokyo merger expected to double market cap. The champagne glass slipped from Diane's manicured grip. The helicopter lifted smoothly into the darkening sky, leaving the Ritz-Carlton and its stunned wedding guests behind. Through the tinted windows, I watched Diane's perfect reception dissolve into a mess of urgent phone calls and furious whispers. "Your stepmother's stockbroker is trying to reach you," my assistant noted through the secure line. "He's suddenly very interested in Chintech's IPO options." "The same broker who told me tech was a silly girl's hobby?" I checked the Tokyo market updates on my tablet. "Add him to the general investor waitlist." Behind the kitchen staff. My phone lit up with messages, from family members who'd supported Diane's seating arrangement, from Madison's country club friends who'd snickered at my little app company, from relatives who'd nodded when Dad called my work a phase. "The merger details are ready for review," my pilot announced, passing back a quantum-encrypted tablet. "Tokyo opens in 20 minutes. As we soared over the city, I thought back to the day everything changed. The emergency that my system could have prevented if they'd only listened. "Pull up the Maxwell Hospital incident," I instructed my AI assistant. From 3 years ago. The holographic display flickered to life, showing newspaper headlines, "Hospital communication failure leads to tragedy." It was the day that proved my hobby could save lives. Dad's business partner, Gerald, had been the hospital's administrator. He'd dismissed my early warning system as unnecessary technology. 3 hours later, their outdated protocols failed during a mass casualty event. "Your father is still holding," my assistant reminded me. "He's mentioned Gerald's name 16 times. "Gerald," I said, reviewing the merger documents, "who lost his hospital administrator position after the Maxwell incident. Who could have prevented it by implementing our system. Who now wants to buy my hobby for pennies on the dollar." The helicopter banked toward our corporate headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and innovation that dwarfed Dad's medical office building. The same tower he'd called overambitious when I'd shown him the plans. "Tokyo Stock Exchange opens in 15 minutes, my pilot announced. Board members are assembled in the quantum conference room. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Thomas would make an excellent executive. His father knows Gerald." Speaking of Gerald, my assistant interjected, "He's apparently making announcements at the wedding reception. Something about being your company's future owner." I pulled up the venue's security feed. Gerald stood near my father, champagne in hand, bragging about his upcoming acquisition of Chintech Systems. "Push the merger announcement," I decided. "Tokyo can wait 5 minutes." The venue's screens, originally meant for wedding photos, flickered to life. My company's logo appeared, followed by breaking news. Chintech Systems announces historic Asian merger. Market value expected to reach $20 billion. Through the security feed, I watched Gerald's champagne glass join Diane's on the floor. Your father is calling again, my assistant reported. And Diane's broker has escalated to offering pre-IPO terms. The helicopter descended toward our landing pad, where board members in Tokyo were already waiting in the quantum conference room. Their technology, my technology, made distance irrelevant. One last thing, I instructed my assistant. Send a gift to the kitchen staff at the Ritz-Carlton. Full shares in the company, pre-merger valuation. And the family table? Send them the employee dining room menu. I hear the kitchen is hiring. My father's latest message flashed across my screen. Sweetheart, let's discuss this as a family. Gerald can meet tonight. Below us, my tower's quantum systems pulsed with life-saving data. Emergency responses coordinated across continents. Hospitals connected through protocols that Gerald had once dismissed. Lives saved by technology that Dad had called a phase. Ms. Chin, my pilot called. Tokyo is ready. I deleted Dad's message. Tell them the future of emergency response is about to begin. And it won't be run from a kitchen table. The helicopter touched down on my tower's landing pad, where real success awaited. Not the kind measured in wedding seating arrangements or country club memberships, but in lives saved and systems transformed. The quantum conference room hummed with potential. Holographic displays showed board members from 3 continents, their faces hovering above ergonomic chairs that cost more than Diane's wedding dress. Tokyo's financial district glowed behind our Asian partners, while London's dawn painted our European investors in early light. The Maxwell incident documentation is ready, my assistant murmured through my earpiece. Including Gerald's written rejection of our system. I took my place at the head of the table, both physical and projected. The room's quantum processors adjusted automatically, creating a seamless integration of present and remote participants. Technology that Gerald had once called science fiction nonsense. Before we begin the merger discussion, I addressed the assembled executives. I'd like to share a historical note. Computer, display Maxwell Hospital records, circa 3 years ago. The room transformed into a detailed holographic recreation of that tragic day. Emergency vehicles scrambled in chaos, traditional communication systems failed and preventable losses mounted. All because Gerald had thought emergency response technology shouldn't be developed by a waitress playing with computers. Your father and Gerald are attempting to enter the building, my assistant reported. They're showing the wedding invitation as credentials. Interesting approach, I noted. Show them to the employee entrance. Behind the kitchen. The board members watched as I pulled up the current statistics. Chintech Systems had reduced emergency response times by 64% globally. Our protocols were now standard in 2,000 hospitals across 60 countries. The technology Gerald rejected now saved approximately 300 lives per day. Ms. Chen, our Tokyo representative, spoke, his hologram leaning forward. The Asian market projection is extraordinary. But there's a competing offer we should discuss. Gerald's proposal, I smiled. Through my father's medical investment group. The room's quantum displays shifted, showing 2 valuations side by side. Gerald's offer looked like pocket change compared to the Tokyo merger terms. They're now in the employee cafeteria, my assistant updated. Your father is demanding to speak with you about family loyalty. I enlarged the Maxwell Hospital data. Speaking of loyalty, let's discuss how our system could have prevented 342 critical delays that day. If certain administrators had valued innovation over tradition. The board members murmured as the numbers rolled across their screens. Lives that could have been saved. Families that could have been spared grief. All because Gerald thought emergency response should stay in the capable hands of his country club associates. Your stepmother is calling every investment firm in her contact list, my assistant added. She's offering inside access to your company. Quantum security, I commanded. Lock down all investment protocols. And send Diane a copy of our insider trading regulations. The illustrated version. The Tokyo merger numbers pulsed across our screens, drawing appreciative nods from board members. Our Asian partners had recognized what Gerald hadn't. That emergency response needed quantum evolution, not traditional limitations. Gerald is now telling cafeteria staff about his imminent acquisition of the company, my assistant reported. amusement clear in her voice. Display current stock value on all building screens, I instructed, including the cafeteria. The quantum systems responded instantly. Throughout the tower, displays showed Chinteca's soaring market position, and the comparatively tiny sum of Gerald's rejected offer. Miss Chin, our London representative interjected, the Emergency Services Coalition is calling. They're ready to implement your quantum response protocols across the European Union. The same protocols, I noted, that Gerald called unnecessary complications to the traditional system. My father's voice came through the employee cafeteria speakers. Sarah, princess, let's be reasonable. Gerald has been in emergency response for 30 years. And in those 30 years, I addressed the board, emergency response times improved by less than 1%. In the 3 years since we launched Chintec Systems, we've revolutionized global emergency services. The quantum displays showed our growth curve, a stunning vertical line that made Gerald's traditional methods look like flatlining patients. Your father is now showing wedding photos to the cafeteria staff, my assistant reported, attempting to prove his connection to you. Show them the kitchen table seating arrangement, I suggested. It proves quite a different connection. The quantum displays shifted again, showing live feeds from emergency centers worldwide. Every pulsing dot represented a life potentially saved by our system. The technology Gerald had mocked now coordinated global emergency responses with quantum precision. Madison is texting about Thomas again, my assistant noted. She's offering to change his resume's comments about your glorified dispatch software. Send her our kitchen staff benefits package, I replied, including stock options, which are worth more than her wedding budget. The board members chuckled as the Tokyo merger terms appeared in their final form. Numbers that would make Gerald's offer look like a tip at his country club. Your father and Gerald are now demanding to see the company ownership documents, my assistant reported. Display them, I nodded. All floors. Throughout the building, screens lit up with a simple pie chart, my 100% ownership of Chintec Systems. No investors, no partners, no compromises. Just pure innovation that had grown from a hobby to a global empire. Shall I patch them into this meeting? My assistant asked. No need, I smiled. The kitchen is about to serve lunch.